I'm going to be going through some workbook exercises taken from this book here, A Modern Grammar for Biblical Hebrew Workbook by Dwayne Garrett and Jason DeRouchie. And we'll also be looking at some tables and content from the textbook, which is A Modern Grammar for Biblical Hebrew. Here's the bibliographical information for these books, and we'll be looking at Chapter 8. So let's begin looking at Chapter 8 here. We are on Workbook page 33, and let's go through a few of these definite article exercises. The rules in the textbook for the definite article are on pages 45 and 46, and there's a helpful table of examples on page 46. Let's look at that real briefly. Here we are on page 46 of the textbook. It gives examples of all the different types of patterns that the definite article can take. So we have the basic pattern and then various possibilities with a begad kafat letter before three of the gutturals, before hey and chet, the other gutturals, and then some of the other rules that are less common. So this is a very handy place to come back to when we're trying to figure out what an article is doing or what it's supposed to be doing. So our first example here is dam. Dam means blood. We have a hey with a patach. Then we have the first letter. In this case, it's a dalet. The dalet over here has a dagesh leni. Here, it can't have a dagesh leni because it comes after a vowel, but it will have a dagesh forte. So when we put an article on, the normal rule is it's hey with patach plus the dagesh forte. Then I put the rest of the word in. In this case, it's just a final meme, not very well written. Then we have the vowel, which is a comets. So we have hadam, and this just means the, which is what your definite article means, and then blood. The blood. Okay, let's look at the next one here. We have oyev. This is going to be different because we have an aleph where the vowel in the definite article lengthens. So here we're going to have, there's our hey, but instead of a patach, we're going to have a comets. The aleph, being a guttural, cannot double, so it cannot take a dagesh forte. In this case, though, it bounces it back and it lengthens the vowel. And then the vowel will be the same on the aleph, and then we're going to have oyev. The rest of the word is going to be the same. So oyev, ha-oyev. This will just be the enemy. The enemy. So the definite article, we're just going to translate that as the in every case. All right, let's look at the next one here. We have mizbachot. Mizbachot. This is a normal one, normal rule. So we'll put the hey before it with a patach. Our first letter of the word itself is going to be a mem, and that will have to be doubled. We're going to put a dagesh forte in there. And then that will have the hirik that it already had from the word, and then we're going to have the zayin, bait, and then I'm going to run a space here. Chot. Make them pretty thin so I can get the letters in. There we go. And then we're going to have miz, or mizbe, chot. There's the vowel for that one. The altars. The chot at the end is your plural. This is one of those nouns that is masculine, but it has a feminine ending. There's a few of those, not very many, but it's an irregular plural. Okay, let's take a look at our next one here. This is chat tot. Notice that the aleph here is quiescent. It has no vowel of its own. So it's treated like it's not there in terms of pronunciation. We just have chatat. When we have a chet at the beginning of a word, and it has anything but a kametz, so it's going to have a patach, what comes before that is going to be the hey for the definite article, but in this case, it's just going to be a patach. Even though this is a guttural, we say that the chet will absorb the doubling. So we can't double a guttural, but it won't bounce as it did back up here in the case of the aleph. Down here, we can't double, but we just say that it absorbs it. So here the vowel stays the same. We just have a patach. So the patach stays the same, and then we write the rest of the word here. So aleph and tau. And that is a kametz, and there is a dagger's forte. That comes from the word itself. So we didn't create that dagger's forte by anything we did. That's just part of the word. And that means the sin, or possibly the sin offering. Let's look at the next one here. We have rosh. Rosh means head. And this is one of the gutturals that will lengthen the vowel before it. So when I put the article in front of it, the patach is going to lengthen to a kametz, and then I will have my word rosh. So that's got a holum there above the resh. So harosh, and that is going to be the head. So there's my translation there, the head. The final one here is eretz. That's a word for land or earth. This is one of a handful of exceptions where both the article does something and the word itself does something. So because it's an aleph, our hey is going to lengthen that patach to a kametz, just as we saw in the one above it. But also what's going to happen is that this aleph is going to change its first vowel from a segol to a kametz. And the rest of the word is going to be the same, so we're going to have our final tzade, so aretz, haaretz. The accent will still be here above the first syllable, so it's haaretz. That means the land or the earth. So once again, going back to the table of examples on page 46 is a handy way to figure out what's going on in any of these kinds of situations. Let's move on and look at some verbs, but first I want to make some basic definitions about person, gender, and number. So briefly, when we talk about verbs, we talk about person, gender, and number. So person will be first, second, or third. So first would be I or we, second would be you, third would be he, she, they. Then we talk about gender. Gender is masculine, feminine, or common, which means both masculine and feminine. And then finally we talk about number. Number is going to be singular or plural. So for example, first common singular equals I, and first common plural is we. Let me say a few things first about this chart on page 41. Column 2 gives us a set of verb forms. And so column 2 here is a whole set of particular verb forms. So before we learn anything about verbs in general, that is such things as roots and how to parse verbs, we're given a set of particular forms here in column 2, and then the gloss or default translations for those. So let me say a few things about the pronouns that we see here. He, they, he, she. So he, we would call that third masculine singular. And similarly, we see they, and that is third masculine plural with this particular verb. Some verbs can be third common plural, meaning they're common to both male and female, but this particular one is masculine plural. They. Then we come down here and we see she, and that will be third feminine singular. Third feminine singular. And one more example here, we have down here, we have I. And I is first common singular. Common meaning that I refers to both masculine or feminine. So for this particular set of verb forms, these are the possibilities that we have for a person. We have third and first, and then gender, masculine, feminine, or common, and then number, singular or plural. Let's do some of the translation practice exercises here for Chapter 8. We are on page 34 of the workbook. Let's look at number 1 here. I'll go ahead and read it. We have Vayomer he hakam lamelech. Vayomer he hakam lamelech. Okay, we begin with our verb, which is vayomer. This is what's known as a vayiktal form. We haven't learned that yet. We'll need to go to our chart. We'll come over here to page 44 of the textbook. This is actually the second part of the chart. The first part is on page 43. And here's our word, vayomer, and it means and he said. Note that the pronoun he means that we have third masculine singular. Come back over. So we begin with and I'm going to put the he in parentheses in case we have an explicit subject. So that gives us and he said. We'll move to our next word, which is he hakam. This looks like a definite article, and I recognize the adjective for wise, or as used as a noun, it could be wise one or wise man. So if this is a definite article, we need to take a look and see what's happening here. So we have a chet with a comets as its vowel. So let's take a look at our chart. Before unaccented ayin with comets, or hey with comets, and always before chet with comets, come over here and the vowel for the definite article is a sagol. That's what we're seeing in our example. So come back over here, we see that the vowel under the article is a sagol. So that is a definite article. The meaning doesn't change. The definite article is still the definite article. It still means the. Our word here, hakam, means a wise man. And then we have the wise man. So it looks to me like wise man is the subject. So we have to ask ourselves now, does the subject match the verb? So we know that our verb is third masculine singular. We saw that from the chart. And we look at our subject here, which is this adjective, chacham, being used as a noun, and it is masculine singular. And we are looking at it from the outside, and so it would be third person. So this all matches. We have a third masculine singular verb and a masculine singular noun that we're looking at as third person. So I'll replace the pronoun with the explicit subject, and the wise man, or the wise one, said. And we have finally here La Melech. So this is, Melech is king. We have a preposition lamed, which is to, but notice that we have, under the preposition, we have a patach, and then we have a doubling of the first letter of Melech. So that's indicating that a definite article was there. So if we start out with Ha-Melech, the king, that would have a dagesh forte, the name doubles. Ha-Melech, accent. We have Ha-Melech. If we want to put a preposition on in the front of it that attaches, so that would be lamed, bait, or calf, that would normally just have a vocal schwa. But what happens is that the hey drops out, and then we drop the lamed in, and it picks up the patach. So if we want to do this, we're going to put the lamed on there, we're going to give it the patach. The hey drops out, so we're going to end up with the meme. It keeps the dagesh forte, and then the rest of it is the same. So Melech, and then the final calf. So La Melech. So this means to the king. To the king. So we'll come back, and we will then type in, and the wise men said, to the king. And then notice the dot, dot, dot. That probably means that there's going to be some kind of quoted speech after this. And the wise man said to the king, I want you to cut my head off, or whatever you're going to say to the king. Probably not that, but there will be some kind of reported speech after this. Let's look at the second one here. So I'll go ahead and read that. Hayashar shav baderek timnata. Once again, Hayashar shav baderek timnata. Notice the accent is on the second to last syllable of this word, so it is timnata. All right, so at the beginning we have what looks like a classic definite article. We have the hey with the patach and the doubling of the first letter of this next word, which is the yod. Yashar means upright. It's an adjective, but it can also be used as a noun, meaning upright one, or since it's masculine here, upright man. So we have the upright. Then we have a verb here, shav. We'll need to go look that up on page 43 or 44. We'll go check. It looks like it's over here on page 43 of the textbook. And here it is. Shav means he returned. So it's third masculine singular. So we have the upright man, or upright one, returned. And so we have a masculine subject, singular, and a masculine singular verb. So they match. So we can put them together. The upright man returned. So let's keep on going here. We have Baderek. Here's another case of a preposition, this time a bait, and notice that we have our word derrick, which means way. It's a fairly common word, so I'm suspecting that we've got a preposition plus a noun. And the bait here, we notice, has a patach, and the first letter of the next word is doubled. And that is a strong indication that the preposition also has a definite article there. And the preposition, in fact, elbowed out the hey, but the vowel and the doubling still remained. So we have in the way. Bait means in by with. This probably is in. So the upright man returned in the way. And then we have our final word here, timnata. This looks like a good example of a directive hey. That's covered in the first section of chapter 7. So let's take a look and see what we have here. Since I know of a city named Timnah, the problem is that if I want to put a directive hey on a noun that ends in commas hey, it would theoretically look like this, Timnaha, but Hebrew really does not like double hays like that. So instead, it's going to convert that first hey to a tav and then put the hey on. So we're going to get timnata, and the accent is going to recede back to the second to last syllable. So that is a directive hey on the place name Timnah. So we'll come back over here to Timnah. The directive hey could mean to, at, possibly even in, but it looks like with the rest of the context here is probably to. The upright man returned in the way to Timnah. All right, so that is our second one. Let's go ahead and look at number 5 now. So we have Hasar Yatain, Evan, Lama'an Hamizbeach. Hasar Yatain, Evan, Lama'an Hamizbeach. All right, so at the beginning we have another classic definite article here. Hey with a patak and the doubling of the first letter there, the sin. So Hasar, and that gives us the leader or the prince or the ruler. So the leader. Yatain is one of our verbs. We'll have to look at our chart. I think this one's on page 41. So here we are on textbook page 41, and here is Yatain. So it is he will give, third masculine singular. That's what that he is telling us. And the gloss default translation is future he will give. So the leader, and leader is masculine singular, so that matches our masculine singular verb. The leader will give. Well, what will he give? Okay, we come to Evan. Evan is a stone. The leader will give a stone. English has an indefinite article. Hebrew does not. And then we have lama'an, and that means on account of, for the sake of, and then we have hamizbeach. And this again is a classic definite article. Hey with a patak, doubling of the first letter. Mizbeach is an altar. So the leader will give a stone for the sake of the altar. definite article is just translated as the. Let's look at number 9 here. We have Herachel Yalada Banim. I'm reading that as a question because we have our interrogative hey here at the very beginning. It's a hey, which makes us think, oh, maybe a definite article, but look at, there's a composite shawah underneath there, a hatef patach, which is a half vowel, and that indicates that we have an interrogative hey. So I'm reading it as a question, Harachel Yalada Banim. So Rachel is Rachel. So we're going to have a question here. Let's just start out with Rachel and then see what our verb tells us. Keep in mind that we have a question that we're asking here. So Yalada is our verb, and that's over here in chapter 6, the chart on page 41. And here it is. Yalada means she bore, so that's third feminine singular. She bore. So come back over here. Rachel is a feminine singular subject, and so the verb matches. It's third feminine singular. Rachel bore, and then we have at the end here banim, and that is the irregular plural for sons. Son is bain and then banim, and it means sons. So Rachel bore sons, and remember that's a question. So we need to account for the question. So I guess I'll put the did Rachel bear sons? Question mark. So it's the bore was past tense, but I'm going to make the past tense from my did, and then I'll have to change the verb form for English. So did Rachel bear sons? So that interrogative hey is turning it into a question. Let's look at number 12 here. Gives us a chance to look at something besides a third person verb. We have attain olot lema'an Yerushalayim. Attain olot lema'an Yerushalayim. Okay, so our verb here, the very beginning, is attain. And we can find that over on page 41. We'll jump over there. And here it is right here. Attain. It's I will give. So that's first singular. First person singular. I will give. So we will begin right there with I will give. And we'll move on. What am I going to give? Well, here is olot. It's a little bit tricky. The actual noun for this can be spelled two different ways. It can be spelled with a vowel letter, ola, like that, or it can be spelled without the vowel letter. We call this being written defectively. So ola. As sometimes happens when a noun ends with comets hey, I guess that's ola, the final hey drops off and we get the ot ending like that. This is all shown on page 32 of the textbook under the vocabulary. What you'll see is this word on page 32, and then it gives us other information in relation to that word. So we have olot, that's a plural, and it means burnt offering. So I will give burnt offerings, or maybe more properly, whole burnt offerings. I will give burnt offerings. And then we saw lama'an previously, that's for the sake of. And then Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, for the sake of Jerusalem. So that's an example where we have a first person singular verb. So we have I will give, and then this plural form, burnt offerings for the sake of Jerusalem. Let's look at one more here, number 20. We've got Rachel in there again. She's pretty popular. And here we have a negative particle, the lo. So it will be telling us that not something is going to happen. So we have lo ta'amod Rachel ba'ir. Lo ta'amod Rachel ba'ir. All right, so our verb here is ta'amod. We'll need to go find that. That's over here on page 44 of the textbook, and it's down here, ta'amod. We actually have two forms. We have ya'amod, which is third masculine singular, and we have ta'amod, which is third feminine singular. So this is she will stand, third feminine singular, and that makes sense because when we come back over, we will be looking at our subject is Rachel. So it makes sense that our verb would also be feminine because Rachel would be feminine singular. So our verb is feminine singular. So we have Rachel will stand. We do not want to forget the not here, so maybe we'll put that in right now. Rachel will not stand, and then ba'ir. Okay, so ba'ir, this is a case where we have a definite article before the word ear, and ayin is one of those gutturals that bounces the doubling. It can't double, and it bounces it back and lengthens the vowel, so it's ha'ir. Now we're trying to put a bait on there as a preposition, and as we talked about, the hay drops out, the bait goes in there and picks up the vowel. So we're going to get ba'ir, and that is going to be in the city. So Rachel will not stand, possibly by the city. That's a possibility also. So Rachel will not stand in the city or by the city. So those are some exercises from chapter 8 in the workbook.